people here, so I don't have to introduce myself. You know who I am. This is really a special day. I brought my lesson notebook with me, and I was going to quiz Ryan to see if I didn't keep all the lesson sheets, but I did keep the lesson tracking sheet. How many lessons do you think we had, Ryan? Okay, we actually, let's see, I'll go to my first sheet here. So we actually started in 2013, in the third week of January. I didn't write down the date. And then our last lesson was in 2019. We had one lesson in the third week of January. So we had lessons for 6 years, and I have 124 lessons down. So we did not practice or have a lesson every week. One of the challenges is most of us don't have an organ in our home. We might have a piano so that you can practice every day. The Edingers figured out pretty quickly that rather than coming up here from Wentzville every day to practice, they actually bought an organ for their home so Ryan could practice at home too. But in the 6 years that I had Ryan, he started at 10 years old, so very young, and just progressed very, very quickly, and it soon became apparent that I did not have enough to continue to teach him, so he went on, and I think you can read this on the back of your program. He went on to the seminary and had lessons with, why am I blanking out on Jim Marriott, yeah. And then obviously at Concordia Seward, he was taking lessons with Dr. Blursch, who has been here a number of times for hymn festivals, so Ryan definitely surpassed at least the first teacher. I'm not sure about the second two, but he definitely surpassed me, and it's going to be hard to imagine life without Ryan or Logan here at Zion. Logan just got married, so she really won't be around anymore. Ryan's got his call to faith in Sequim, so he won't be around anymore. I know that was tough for me when my kids left because they were very instrumental in the music ministry here, and so have Logan and Ryan been, so it's kind of bittersweet, but it's something that must happen. And we're really excited, Ryan, that you're going to be serving in the church. So you can read in there that already from the first time we were taking lessons, I would always plant the seed, wow, you could actually be an organist in the church someday, a music director, either as an avocation or maybe even your vocation. And in Ryan's case, it's going to be his vocation. So I'll stop talking. So what we're going to do is Ryan will be up on the screen, both speaking and playing. So before he plays each set of pieces, he'll just share a word or two about each one. So we'll keep this a little bit informal so that you can be as formed as possible. Sometimes organ pieces, especially big ones, we're not used to listening to, so Ryan's going to give us a little bit of insight. All right, thank you, Ryan.
Is this thing on? Wonderful. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming to this concert. I'm really, really glad that I have the opportunity to perform this program here at Zion, my stomping ground, so to speak. Adapting it to this organ was a really, really fun challenge, actually. As I've traveled to other churches with many and various different kinds of organs, I've come to love the things that this organ can do actually more and more. But I'm going to stop talking and start playing because this triptych by Dr. Blursch doesn't really need an introduction, does it? Fun things happen when you learn a piece from the person who wrote it. But I didn't get this opportunity with this next piece. And the title is in French. I won't butcher it for you. But this composer, Olivier Messiaen, was a Catholic French composer from the 20th century. And he had a lot of very different influences. And one of the most notable ones, of course, was his faith. And so he wrote lots and lots and lots of organ music. This particular piece, the title translates to Apparition of the Holy Assembly. And it's intended to conjure the kinds of images we might think of on All Saints' Day. The great multitude, which no one can number, that has washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. It's a little bit unusual to 21st century ears, though, because Messiaen also had a condition called synesthesia, and that caused him to see colors. Because what synesthesia does, it comes in several different forms, but the form he had, the most common one, causes you to see colors when your hearing is stimulated. And that informs a lot of the way he writes. And so a lot of the harmony, or whatever you can call it, is informed more by that than traditional harmonic rules. And this piece goes on for a while too. It's this great big arc that starts very quiet and builds up very loud to a fortissimo and then gets very quiet again. And so this is Apparition by Messiaen. For the next piece, I figured it'd be good to return to our good Lutheran heritage and break out a Bach chorale. But little did I know this would end up being the hardest Bach chorale I've ever played. This chorale on A Lamb Goes Uncomplaining Forth is from the Leipzig collection, which Bach wrote fairly late in his life. And his music had become very, very advanced at that time. He'd begun to master the style of the late Baroque. And so this chorale prelude is in 5 voices, not 4, as a piece for a choir might be written for. I'm ad-libbing these program notes, forgive me. But the solo voice is actually in the tenor, not at the very top. But it'll come out very, very clearly since I've registered it with a core name, which is actually a really interesting thing. This collection of stops over here that we have on the grate was sort of come up with to imitate the sound of a trumpet. And back when the French hadn't come along and invented the reed chorus yet, as you heard in a piece like Messiaen that would be utilized there, that was what would be preferred a lot of the time for solo voice. So this is On Wasserflüssen Babylon by Bach. There we go. So all of the pieces that I've played on this program, except for the one that I'm about to play, were on the program for my senior recital that I played at Concordia. This one I actually wrote for a much more important occasion, which was Logan's wedding. And I played this as a pre-service piece just before the party started walking down the aisle. This is a chorale on Awake for Night is Flying. If you'll forgive me, I have to sort through this stack of music now because the music for my final piece is in here somewhere, and I do need that. last piece that I'm about to play is another fairly long one. This is a trio sonata, not a trio sonata, it's an organ sonata by Felix Mendelssohn, and it's composed of two movements. They're misnumbered in the program. But this first movement, the long one, is in a rounded binary form. So it has an A section, a B section, and then the A section comes back one more time. The B section, which is of the most interest, is a chorale fugue on From Depths of Woe I Cry to Thee, which is this very wrenching hymn, this Lutheran hymn, that Luther actually wrote about confession and absolution. But Mendelssohn bookends this with this humongous, grand A major fanfare section. And he does it for a particular reason. What exactly he's symbolizing with these fanfares, whether it's the Old and New Testament, the law and the gospel, the old and new creation, is a little bit above my pay grade, but in all, it creates this message of hope through forgiveness and ultimately salvation and the near presence of God in the new creation and eternal life. And the second movement, I won't spoil, but it is one of my favorite musical moments, certainly, that I've ever played. So I hope you enjoy Mendelssohn's Third, To God Alone the Glory.
say just a few more things before you leave. First of all, that was outstanding. Thank you very much, Ryan. He definitely has surpassed me. I can't remember if I played some of that Mendelssohn too back when I was a young man. But Ryan is also quite a composer. I mean, you heard one of his pieces, and I remember talking to Ryan. I am not a composer. I am much more. The creative side of my brain is dormant. It's the mathematical side that's kind of active. So that's me, kind of the technician, not necessarily the creative person. But we had talked about I would love one day to be able to purchase from Concordia Publishing House pieces composed by Ryan. So Ryan, I'm retiring in maybe 9 more years, so submit things to CPH so I can buy one. I mean, I can buy when I'm retired too, but it'd be fun to see Ryan's name in our bulletin for some things. You also know that we have a hymn festival guest organist every year coming to Zion. People like John Benke, Kevin Hildebrand, Jeffrey Blursch, and usually we're hoping to have organists that compose so that we can do a lot of their music at our hymn festival. And I told Ryan that would be neat someday if we could invite Ryan back, and so hopefully that can happen. That has to happen in the next 9 years. So anyway, there's one area that Ryan has totally surpassed me, and this is maybe the best of all. He has way more hair than I do. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. This is kind of a great way to kind of end Ryan's time here. Not that it totally comes to a close, but you know, I am actually going back to my home congregation in about a month. My parents are celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary, and they kind of rankled me into playing for their early service, and so it's kind of fun. That's really the first time I've gone back to my home congregation and actually played for a regular Sunday service. So hopefully we can have Ryan back as a hymn festival guest or maybe some other time. So anyway, it's been great to have Ryan around. We pray richest blessings for you, Ryan, as you move far, far away, literally like the northwest corner of Washington. So enjoy your afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Steve. Sure, Steve has a question. Yeah, it's not any kind of tuning. Basically, yeah, those are pistons, and pistons are buttons or toe studs. So you probably saw at the front of the pedals there were these silver. Those are toe studs, and so they do the same thing as pistons. And basically, you can set those. In fact, Ryan was doing some of that before some pieces where we have 8 general pistons per memory channel. And you basically decide what stops you're going to have on, and then you can set, say, for piston number 1, and then a different setting for piston 2. So you can quickly switch registration in the middle of a piece or between stanzas of a hymn, things like that. So we can't do anything about the tuning. That is what it is. Yeah. Well, I've made this mistake a number of times, and it probably will never happen to Ryan. But when you have a number of memory channels, I will usually have my prelude, offering, and postlude on a different memory channel. And every now and then after an offering, I'll forget to put it back to memory channel 1, which is for hymns and other things. And you know, I'll hit a piston, and all of a sudden there's hardly anything there. And thankfully, the congregation always bails me out and sings anyway. And then I have to quickly figure out how to get that back on. So sometimes too many, gadgets are just more things to think about. But did that answer your question, Steve? Yeah. No, Ryan, that was absolutely phenomenal. So
Thank you.
it was very, very good. Thank you.
But no, I was gonna say actually, before the Mendelssohn, you could see me setting some pistons. That's because some of the things that I set last night didn't take for some reason. It's a computer issue somehow. And so, about 4 times, I hit a piston and the wrong stops came out. 4 times. It was, yeah. So that's fun. I'm glad I noticed before anyone else did, though. Thank you.